Okay, Sheldon. Okay, tell us about the Legacy Tour, because you have been the only one out of all of us who has attended.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, it was a great show. Like I was telling you, Namdi, I got off of a red eye flight from the west coast to the east coast, and then I had to drive like 2 hours in heavy rain to Baltimore to get to the show.
Wow.
So I got there, Keith Sweat and New Edition. I missed Guy, but like I said, the distance that I had to drive and the weather kind of held things up or whatever. But I'm going to tell you, with that show, New Edition confirmed why they are the epitome of all of the 80s, 90s groups in terms of showmanship. I mean, the show was excellent. Obviously, like I said, I got there when Keith Sweat was performing, so I got a chance to see him perform some of his songs. And I spoke to someone at the concert, and they said Guy did very well. But I'll tell you, the spot was packed. We're talking about 20,000 people. It was packed, everybody. And it was just, Keith had the audience in the palm of his hand. Teddy performed with him. And it was just, he was running through all the songs off the Make It Last Forever album. And I swear, it was just Keith and Teddy, and the audience was singing along, song for song. He just had him in the palm of his hand, man. It was just, I've never seen him live in concert before. So to see him, all the crazy stories, him being drunk and, some lip syncing and all that stuff. But I'm going to tell you, Keith put it down. He put it down that night. He's just run through the whole catalog, and just to see people's response was amazing. I just kept going from looking at him to looking around at the crowd, and he had the crowd in this, man. And then when New Edition, God, it was like it went to the next level, because now they came from up out of the stage. So when they started out, they called the group out. They came up from under these risers and came up off the stage, and the first song that they did was Crucial. So they went into their whole routine. Of course, Bobby walked off the stage, and they went into their thing. But I'm going to tell you this: that show was, the pacing of the show was excellent, because they had a great mixture of the up tempos and the ballads, and the way that the show was situated. They didn't leave. I mean, they hit you with all the ballads that people kind of remember from them prior to Heartbreak, and the way the show was set up. Even though, believe it or not, Bobby got the largest and the loudest screams of the whole night.
Wow.
Bobby was just, the response for Bobby was so great. And the way that they set it up, obviously, the sequencing of the started out with the up tempos, but it was paced to where everybody got a chance to do their solo songs. And when Bobby was doing his thing, he would come out and do the ballads like Ronnie, and people would just lose their minds. And then when it came to the up tempo songs where he would normally dance, he would come out and New Edition would perform the songs with him. And the way it was set up, they would do the choreography, but then they would interact with them. So it was like to compensate for all the athletic stuff that he used to do when he was young. It was like you really didn't miss it. It wasn't like when you were watching him perform, you're like, oh man, I wish I could see the Bobby from '88, because he would perform and they would dance with him. And then there were moments in time where Bobby would do free from '88. Now, he wasn't doing it at the pace that he was doing it back then, but what he would do the dance, the choreography off of Moby, and he would just enough where people would kind of really pull Dan just to give you enough of what he used to do. And again, one support from the group members, man. And then when it came to, let's say, for example, come out and do his thing, and it was amazing, because I'm watching there's a lot of women there, And it's crazy to see a bunch of women that are like 50 years old, 50 plus years old, and they're being transformed into teenagers right before my eyes. Because he's doing songs like with all that, with you all the way, lost in all the new edition they did when they were like 15 and 16. And I'm seeing them back into kids again. So it was paced very well. The way of their songs, it wasn't like they left anything out, but it was, you started out with the up tempos, then it the slow ballads, then they would pick it up again. Ralph and Ricky would do Mr. Telephone Man. He didn't come out and perform that, but it was still, you didn't miss anything. And then when they had periods of time when they would do their songs, and they would have a period where Ralph would actually like talk. I mean, not Ralph, Mike. He would go to the top of the stage and he would be up there by himself and he would do his talking, like when they would do, what's the one? Can You Stand the Rain? And he would get and he would have his part where he would talk. The way the stage was set up, it was just like they would go out, they would do, uniform changes, they would change the mics up. When they would go into one song, four of them would kind of like share the mic, and Ralph would do his thing. I'm trying to tell you, I saw them perform many years ago, maybe 30 years ago, 1984. That was like the first concert I ever went to. And to see them now, I'm trying to tell you, man, they are head and shoulders over all of the peers who they had come out with. So you're talking about, you saw them during the Home Again. So imagine the Home Again show times 10. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're talking about the choreographer's on point, singing was on point.
How much of the Heartbreak album? How much of that album did they do song wise?
Oh wow! They did Crucial, which was up the show. They did, of course, If It Isn't Love. They closed the show with Any Heartbreak.
Wow.
The song, the remix to Any Heartbreak. They did that one, yes, because Poison closed the show, and then they got back with the going on the Any Heartbreak remix. So they did that. They did what's the other record that they did?
Can You Stand the Rain?
You're Not My Kind of Girl. You're not my kind of girl.
Did you do Sorry I'm Not Your? Yeah, I love that record. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah, because what they did was they would have in the background, they would have like the videos, and you kind of knew what was going to happen because the microphones that they had in the video, You're Not My Kind of Girl, they brought those microphones out as soon as they brought them out because it was dark. So everybody knew what they was going to do.
Wow.
The slants or whatever, the slanted microphone. Oh my God, them guys, man, they turned it out. They turned it out. You're talking about, I mean, on a scale 1 to 10, 10, man, 10. I'm talking about Johnny. He went ahead and did his thing. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder because
he did my. Go ahead.
No, but because we're talking about guys who have been in the industry 40 years, so they're all in their mid 50s, and they after Any Heartbreak and they had Home Again album, they didn't have New Edition they didn't sell as many albums as many people, but when they go on tour, it seems as if they had learned from the time when they're kids that, what will keep you relevant is having a performance. So the music doesn't seem to be the selling point as opposed to the performance and the emotions that the music then evokes when you see the performance, because you're thinking about, okay, people go see Mary or see Beyonce, but I don't get this type of effect about New Edition, about their tours or shows as I'm seeing when it comes to New Edition. It seems if everyone just respects them. And so you're telling me they didn't miss a beat when they were on stage. They just seemed like they took into something.
The reason why that is because they patterned themselves after performing. They after people like Magic and the Jacksons and people who were like stood and they sang pyro. So they patterned themselves after. So nobody, no other kid goes out for them to pattern themselves after. So they carry that with them, work for them, because everyone else was who came years after. It was more about the record, about the studio. So by the time these people were coming out with these hit records, their stage show wasn't really together. So when you look at what New Edition was able to do, they were the equivalent like OJ's Temptations, groups that may have hadn't had hit records in years, but they had a hit show. And that's what's going to, and that's what takes New Edition above everybody else, because for them, it's always been about the performance. It's always been about the show, and the records were secondary. But the great thing about it is that the records backed up the show. So it's not like, okay, you got a great show and you got mediocre records. You've got great records, and then for them to be able to perform the records and they sound just like the songs when you heard them on the radio or when you bought them. You know, so a lot of groups, they can't do that. They can't pull off the records. I mean, you had a interview with the guys from Basic Black the first time around. I think it was Mucho, and you asked him a question about, can you guys come out and do, you know, put the music out? And he was saying, well, you know, back then they used certain type of equipment. So it's kind of challenging to reproduce those sounds because the equipment has changed. But New Edition, they kind of like surpass all of that because they had a great band behind them, but the performance was great. And that was the thing, man. You know, people were so excited to see them.
What about because there's rumors that there's going to be Kings of New Jack Swing tour next year, Keith and Teddy, and I know they've got the jackets, and I know that they're almost doing a mini rehearsal. When that's why Teddy seems to be part of the Keith Sweat show, because I think the two of them, because they did announce that they were planning something later, and it seems as if Teddy spends more time on Keith's set than before. In fact, at first he came in, did a song and left, but it seems as if they're both doing their thing together. I always tell people, and anyone that knows me will know that my 3 favorite albums are Make It Last Forever, the Barbie album, and it sometimes switches between Guy and the Blackstreet debut album, but Make It Last Forever is
great choices.
Yeah, Make It Last Forever and the Barbie album. Those are my top 2 albums. What was it like when Keith Sweat is doing that Make It Last Forever album? Because people understand that's 8 tracks. That's a classic because it's more popular than anything else he's put out. You know, we have Twisted and Get Up and all that other stuff, but those don't have the same emotions as the Make It Last Forever album. So when he was doing that album, I mean, what tracks was he doing on the Make It Last Forever album?
I mean, he did How Deep Is Your Love? He did, oh my God, of course he did Make It Last Forever. I mean, he did I'm
sure he did I Want It.
He did I Wanna, but it was like the ballads. He ended his show with a lot of the ballads for Make It Last Forever. I'm trying to tell you, man, it wasn't like, you know, because normally back in, you know, 5 years, 7 years, he would end maybe the concert with Twisted. No way. It was like, it was the Make It Last Forever album, man. And I'm trying to tell you, the people were going crazy, man. It's just the fact, and what you were saying as far as the New Jack Swing tour, him and Teddy, I guess they're going to be the anchors. Yeah, they're going to be probably the anchors of the whole thing. So that in that way, and again, it kind of makes sense because I can see Keith Sweat and Teddy Riley like closing. I can see them closing together the way they perform, because, you know, this is, you know, people never really saw them perform together like that. You know, you're talking about running through the whole catalog, man. So it makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to tell you that tour is probably going to happen sooner than later. Because right now, think about it, New Edition was on tour about 7 or 8 months ago. So right now, the era that we're in, these people who we're seeing now, we're in the era of now there are legacy artists doing tours, and they're not doing and the whole setup. It's not like it's some sort of cheap tour when it's not a lot of money in it. You got dancers. It's a whole big production, and it's already proven. So now when you see, it's almost like a special where New Edition was. There was the Cold Tour, and it's the Legacy Tour. Now with the New Jack Swing situation, this is gonna keep going, man. Just like Bobby Brown did an interview before, say, look, all the fighting that we used to do, we're not fighting anymore. Because again, they know what this actually means. You know, they know what it means to the fans, but they also know what it means to them, man, in terms of this. Everything kind of lines up. Because with R&B tours, sometimes it's not, you know, it's treated as this big event. It's just a regular tour. So now I'm glad to see things come full circle where the notoriety, fans are coming out. These individuals are able to go ahead and make good money off these tours. So I would love to see them go back out again. I think in this case, people, there's a lot of questions, a lot of criticisms and whatnot. But I'll tell you this: at the age that a lot of the fans are at, some people might have, but older now, and you go to your own talent, health, and all that stuff like that. So you're not necessarily invincible. You don't have that invincible feeling that you had when you were young. Go out there and they're not like 25 or 30 years anymore. You kind of see shortfalls and all of that. It kind of glides right at that point. You're kind of like seeing yourself. It's like you're growing older with the artists. That's why when you see the response with Bobby, 20 years ago, Bobby was like the laughing stock of America, man. They just really made fun of him. A lot of low blows, negative comments, and all. At this point with Bobby, everybody is pulling for him because of all the life issues and stuff that he's had. So in this era, I think people are just glad to see the groups come out and do this classic music that they love. And I think it makes sense, for Teddy and Keith to be the anchors and everybody come out and, do what they do. So this whole touring situation is a great thing.
Wow.